Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Disney. Disney's ABC staff are freaking the F out over the ABC sale. That's according to CNN that did some research talking to a number of staffers and found that yes, the ABC news people in particular are really worried about the future of ABC because they realize it's probably going to be sold, and a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Coming from CNN Business, ABC News staffers freaking out over reports Disney is in talks to sell the outlet. Bob Iger has already mentioned very publicly that he expects to sell ABC and their cable channels. But I do know he never would have talked about it publicly unless there were a lot of conversations going on already and unless he really knew this is very important for Disney to generate some cash. The Disney-owned newsroom was jolted on Thursday after a report suggested that the outlet could soon be expelled from the Magic Kingdom. Bloomberg's Christopher Palmieri and Thomas Buckley reported that Disney has held exploratory talks about selling ABC to Nextstar Media Group. The duo also reported that media mogul Byron Allen has also spoken with Disney about a possible sale. I can guarantee you that Disney has talked to at least 10 different relatively serious entities about buying ABC and the cable channels. And the reason why is they at least need to understand what the market value is of ABC because they need to understand what the value is of all of Disney. It's really not clear right now, especially with the stock crashing. In conversations with more than half a dozen people inside and around ABC News that CNN spoke to Thursday evening, it was made clear that a feeling of dread and trepidation is washing over the outlet as they face the unknown. Quote, "Everyone is freaking the F out," one ABC News staffer bluntly told the author about the state of affairs inside the network. "It's all anyone at work is talking about," added another. Indeed, mergers and acquisitions always inspire feelings of anxiousness as staffers wonder what a new corporate parent might mean for them. Will a new parent move to install its own leadership? Yes, many times they do. Will they cut costs? They almost always cut costs. Will they make other changes? Yep, they almost always make changes. Sometimes it's for the better when a company gets bought out, and sometimes it's not just all about cutting. But a lot of times, because things have been the way they have been for so long, companies don't go and change themselves up and let go of operations and let go of people so quickly. They tend to keep what they have based on inertia and based on not wanting to rock the boat. But when a new owner comes in, they go to kind of a zero-based budgeting mentality, which is to say, why do we have any of the stuff we have in place right now? Why do we have any of the people that we have in place right now? And then they go back and justify why they're keeping, who they're keeping, what assets they're keeping, how they're going to do their business. And if they see a lot of things that don't fit, they start cutting them. Nextstar already owns News Nation, a little-watched cable news channel that embraces what they call both-sidism in this article. Both-sidism, of course, would be saying a story has two sides to it because, of course, all legitimate stories do have different considerations. On CNN, in particular, it's very one-sided and they block any exposure of any second side, almost on any and every story. It never used to be that way. News Nation, this cable channel, is actually where Chris Cuomo wound up. He has a show Monday through Friday, basically just doing his Chris Cuomo thing, pretty much similar to his other show. Would Nextstar move to meld the two and supercharge its cable news operation with the more robust resources of ABC News? No, probably not. Probably because no one is really all that excited about ABC News anyway. There are multiple cable channels for news. Nextstar would likely look at it as an opportunity to build their News Nation channel and inject a lot of News Nation into ABC. When your company is being talked about being sold, and sometimes people watch my videos and they make a point in the comments to say they work for this company or they work for that company that I happen to be talking about, but when you're working for a company that is actively talking about laying people off, actively talking about making major changes or trying to please investors, or they're going to be sold or they're selling part of the company, it starts to become a very unstable situation. And it is best to start looking at other opportunities as soon as possible if it's possible. Staffers who CNN spoke to acknowledged that a divorce with Disney seemed inevitable after Bob Iger's infamous comments earlier this summer that the television asset, quote, may not be core to the company. They were apprehensive about how quickly a potential sale appeared to be progressing. This sale is going to happen soon. Bob Iger is only there supposedly until 2026, but Disney does need to raise cash. They've got around $11 billion in cash on hand. If they spend the cash that they have on hand, which they can't spend all of it, they need some money to operate with, but even if they did, it would shoot their debt up to a net debt of around $50 billion because their current debt is around $50 billion. You deduct the cash on hand to determine what their net debt is. That is a bad thing for Disney, and it would be concerning to investors, as if they're not already worried enough investors, to see Disney go further into debt by spending the cash on hand that it has. So they need to sell assets to get some cash together, especially to satisfy this Hulu obligation, because Disney needs to pay for the 1/3 of Hulu that they don't already own per their contract with Comcast. The ABC Newsers suggested that they're frustrated that they may remain in the dark about the future of their company. Instead of hearing directly from Disney leadership, they're instead reading in the press about what the House of Mouse plans to potentially do with the company. I mean, Bob Iger really did make it pretty clear he doesn't think that ABC and their other linear channels are necessarily core to the company, and that they were looking at all options for those divisions. He could go out and literally put a for sale sign on the front lawn of ABC, but you can't make it any more obvious than that. CNN was told Iger, likely recognizing the frustration radiating out of the news division, is expected to make a visit to his ABC News troops next week in New York City. But for obvious reasons, he's likely limited on what he can say about the future of the company. Whether a deal to offload ABC and Disney's linear stations is ultimately in the cards remains to be seen. A deal with Nextstar, the nation's largest owner of television stations and majority owner of the CW network, could also come with some regulatory complications, potentially forcing some stations to be divested. That is to say that there's a limit to the number of TV stations that the U.S. government allows any one company to own or control. So if Disney has more TV stations combined with Nextstar, then Nextstar would be allowed to control. A few of those stations would have to be sold off. A potential deal would also raise questions for ESPN and Disney's simulcast of sporting events on the broad terrestrial network. That's not really such a big deal because ESPN can easily license content, even if they have contracts that technically restrict them to do that. It shouldn't be a big deal for the leagues to agree to that. The leagues want the revenue and the distribution, so that's not going to hold up them making a sale of ABC. Nextstar declined to comment on Thursday. When reached out, Bloomberg described the talks as preliminary. Iger has also talked up the importance of ABC News as recently as July, when he tried to clean up his mess after speaking to ABC at Sun Valley. Quote, "I'm ridiculously passionate about news," Iger told senior company leaders. "It's important to the company. We need to figure out how it makes the transition into streaming. And I happen to believe we will endure. It's too good, it's too important, and it's really fun." Iger actually came from ABC to Disney when Disney acquired ABC back when Michael Eisner was CEO. But it looks like Iger would sell ABC in 2 seconds if he can get a decent price for it. Disney, for its part, poured cold water Thursday evening on any notion that a deal has been inked at this time. But the statement issued by the media giant once again affirmed that it is open to considering a variety of strategic options for our linear businesses. That's a big hint of what's to come. As one television executive put it, once they were Iger's jewel in the crown, their 20 million plus anchors were trotted out for board meetings and glitzy dinners in New York City. Now they're on the chopping block. But the executive added, Iger is unsentimental and cold-blooded. He will do what is best and necessary for Disney. He will not hesitate to cut off well-paid anchor friends, cast out beloved networks, or sell the jewels in the crown. Here's what's going on with Nextstar, the company that might buy ABC. Shares of Nextstar rose 5.5% to $157.85 at the close in New York. Disney gained 1.2% to $84.48. Tom Carter, Nextstar's former president and now an advisor to its CEO and board, told investors at a Bank of America's securities conference Wednesday that the company is interested in acquiring assets from legacy media owners like Disney that are looking to restructure. Nextstar could acquire the ABC outlets with possibly only a few divestitures, selling off divisions, to stay within limits on broadcast station ownership. He also said Nextstar, the largest U.S. owner of TV stations, needs more guidance from Disney on what it wants to do. Quote, "They've got to be a little clearer in their thinking," Carter said. We can take direction, but we're not necessarily out there leaning into any of this stuff without a clear path. Nextstar, based in Irving, Texas, has 200 owned or partner TV stations in 116 markets, including many affiliated with Fox, NBC, and CBS. The owners of those networks could object to the company buying ABC and its stations. Federal regulators have been challenging mergers in general. Earlier this year, the would-be buyer of TV station owner Tenga Incorporated dropped its bid in face of delays by the Federal Communications Commission. Quote, as Nextstar is already the largest owner and operator of local broadcast stations, we do not see how it can lawfully purchase the full suite of ABC stations given they are already at the national ownership cap, Rob Thun, content chief officer at satellite TV provider DirecTV, said in an emailed statement. So Rob Thun is jealous, but some deal is probably going to get done. The two companies are in a contract renewal fight that's led to blackouts of Nextstar stations on DirecTV systems. Nextstar recently acquired majority ownership of the CW network from Warner Bros. Discovery and Paramount Global last year. ABC and the company's 8 TV stations could bring in $4 billion according to estimates from Bloomberg Intelligence. That's about 7 times the roughly $575 million in earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. But Byron Allen is already offering $10 billion for ABC and other Disney networks. Disney has said it has not made any decisions on sale of the properties, but this media mogul has made unsuccessful offers for other assets. So just because he makes a big $10 billion offer, it doesn't mean he can finance it. But this is the reason why staffers are freaking out. Because Byron Allen has submitted a $10 billion offer to Walt Disney Company to acquire its ABC TV network, local stations, as well as the FX and National Geographic cable channels, according to a person familiar with his proposal. The offer is preliminary and could change, said the person, who asked not to be identified. Allen is basing his offer on the assumption that the properties generated $1.25 billion in earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization over the past 12 months. If that number is lower or higher, Allen would change his proposed price. Allen would work with banks and private equity firms to finance an acquisition, the person said. He may sell the local TV stations he already owns that aren't affiliated with ABC, so there wouldn't be any friction with other networks like CBS and NBC. This in contrast to Nextstar that owns stations affiliated with multiple broadcast networks. So it would be smoother for Allen to acquire it rather than Nextstar. It's starting to sound more and more to me like somebody's going to acquire something. Another reason employees would freak out is because they're well aware banks, private equity groups, and financiers, when they come in and they help buy something, they are very strict on the companies they invest in making money, which is almost always layoffs and consolidations. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Do you think Disney's ABC staff has anything to worry about? Do you think Bob Iger would sell their company and let them all get fired or get their salaries cut? Or do you think Bob will stand up for them and say, no, you may not buy my company if you're going to lay off these people? And do you think he will protect them? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.